Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fix My Fees podcast, where merchant processing is so boring. I bring on interesting people to come in and have a conversation with. And today we have somebody who's a load of fun. Chris Major here with us today. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. Yeah.
Now, what got me, attached to Chris was when I saw that, a lot of times in our space and different spaces, people want to focus on the leader, the owner, the CEO, and telling them what to do. And the idea behind what I saw from yours was like, how do we mobilize the entire teams so that you can do things profitable and efficient so that you don't have to waste time, energy, and money, and people can still, like, I think you said on there, like, go home. Right?
Yeah.
People can live their lives outside of it. And so I really, really enjoyed like reading that. But is that the totality of like how this came about? What is it that you are doing on a day-to-day basis, and how did that come to fruition?
Well, those are two kind of complex questions. Let's start with the second one. How did it all come about?
Yeah, let's start there.
So many years ago in a land far away, way back in the early 80s, I started a company with a partner. I'd been a first division rugby player for years. He was a world-class skier. In short, we were athletes. And our original mission was very simple. We were going to work exclusively with athletes, isolate and reproduce in others the elements that led to consistent winning performance. So we built out a whole body of work that was highly effective with our individual clients. We had a little problem, which was that this was in the days before Nike, Adidas, and everybody like that exists the way they do today. So all of our clients were amateurs, which meant they were broke, doing good work, not getting paid. Flaw in the business plan. So we turned our attention to teams. We saw the same thing that you've seen, probably participated in, which is we could take a group of individuals who as individuals were terrific, put them on a team, and the team would stink. And we go, that doesn't make any sense, but it happens so often, and not just in sports. So there's something for us here to learn. So we built out a body of work. We coined the phrase team cohesion in 1983 and went to work with national teams, professional teams, Olympic teams. Much to our surprise, that work caught the attention of the Army. And we spent almost 3 years helping the Army redesign the way they train soldiers, which in turn led us to a year-long classified project with the Special Forces, where we had a programmatic blank check to push the boundaries of human performance. Cool. So at the end of that project, I said to my guys, look, we've been fortunate in that we've developed a body of work that's proven highly effective in two arenas where performance matters and where you can measure it, first with athletes and then with soldiers. Yay. The bad news is, or the other news is, I don't want to spend my whole career training soldiers. Now, to be clear, the actual work of working with soldiers was terrific, the best stuff we ever got to do, because they were just wonderful. The process of getting to do it, the Army's contracting process, was sufficiently odious that, I was young and a little naive probably, but I just said, I can't see myself hiring 5 guys just to do contract compliance. So we turned our attention to business, and I'll spare you all the glory story, but we built out a body of work to produce large-scale transformation in a short amount of time, and my client list is golden, AT&T, Intel, EDS, Microsoft, Nike, Cargill, Capital One, blah, 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 blah. And as we went through the years, we began to notice something, and it took a while to get our finger on it. And it was, okay, we're doing all this good stuff, and people are smart, and they want to produce results, and they're working hard, but it's still not happening. What's missing? And the standard answer is, oh, well, you need some productivity tools or new software or new this or new that. And that didn't seem to make much difference, even today. So I began to see, well, there's a bigger underlying problem here. And if you'll give me a minute, I'll give you the brief history lesson. So most of what we think of as modern management practices were created by people who were born in the 80s. They were designed to be effective for Henry Ford and his peers as they ushered in the industrial mass production era.
Right.
Okay. Now, the problem they were trying to solve was simple, simple to articulate. How do we take unskilled, uneducated, unsophisticated day laborers and farm workers and turn them into productive factory workers? Okay. The answer they came up with, what made sense at the time, was very simple. First, de-skill the work. Right. So you might have been a really skilled craftsman who made gorgeous wood panels for horse-drawn carriages. Yeah, here you're going to put 5 bolts on a Model T wheel all day, every day. And if you don't like that, that's okay. There's the door. Because in those days, there was no social safety net. If you didn't work, you didn't eat.
Right.
So that gave birth to the modern industrial bureaucracy, where the game was not about anything other than production. It's the only thing that mattered. So there was input, output, throughput. And anything that got in the way of that, disruptions, surprises, etc., no. All right, flash forward to today. We're no longer living in the industrial era. Most people don't make things, but we create value like you're a classic example. You're not sitting around, working on your workbench. You create value out of your capacity to effectively coordinate with other people to produce customer satisfaction, whether the customer's internal or external. So this is getting to be a long answer, but what we're working on now is understanding the underlying, and it is a technology of coordination. The biggest problem that we have in business today is lack of coordination skills, and we misdiagnose it. This coordination happens in conversation. Right? It isn't about technology and process and all that kind of stuff. It's at its root, the fundamental element of work isn't me manipulating some object in time and space. It's me talking to you. And we think, well, of course everybody knows how to talk. Look at us. We're doing it right now. Yes, but there's a methodology that everybody, for the most part, is missing. On the one hand, it's so simple. When I start explaining to it, they all look at me like, well, duh, we do that all the time. I go, yeah, no, you don't. You do it sometimes. You don't do it rigorously. You often get in a big hurry to get into action, and in so doing, create a whole bunch of waste. So I'll stop there and see if that made any sense.
No, it did make sense. And so I guess when most people think in the like traditional way of like communication and coordination, they think of Slack channels, Notion boards, and
Mm-hmm.
put things in here and get together. Is that the right tracking, or are they missing a significant part of the process when they're starting to think that way?
Well, it's fine for tracking, but they're missing the underlying architecture of conversation.
Mhm.
So, I mean, at its root, the fundamental element of work in this, what we've come to call the coordination era. Everybody thinks of today's labor force as knowledge workers. I go, no. Yes, they have knowledge, don't get me wrong, but knowledge by itself is useless. Knowledge sitting in a report is useless. Knowledge in a meeting is useless. The greatest idea in the world is useless until people can mobilize, coordinate action, and bring it out into the world. That's the part that
Yeah,
matters.
right.
So Slack, is great. We use it, and we use it precisely. So if I need to get something done, I say, would you please do whatever it is, do X by time Y?
Right.
And then you go yes or no. Okay. Now, doesn't get any simpler than that. Please pass the salt. Well, there it is. Okay, bingo. That's a little what we call coordination loop, an interaction loop. Now, at that level, it's pretty simple. But when you start getting 10 people involved on a project, part of the problem is we all have our background through which we listen to things. So we
Yeah.
do this little exercise with groups. Okay, so I got a group of 50 people. Everybody get a partner. For the next 2 minutes, I want you to make a clear request to your partner, and your partner will fulfill that right here in the room. We have some ground rules about it that we don't need to go into because
I know what you mean. He's a
yeah,
professional.
yeah, exactly. And and they do it, and then they laugh and have a good time, and then they switch roles. They laugh, have a good day. Now, okay, let's just check. How many of you found that even in this simplest of exercises, you still had miscoordination? Every single hand goes
I
up.
was about to say it's probably a lot.
Yeah, every single hand. Okay. Now here we go. Follow the bouncing ball. So if it was that problematic in this simple an operation,
With
imagine
one
what
one.
happens
Yeah.
when you've got 50 people involved in a complex project. It's just a series of an opportunity for a mess waiting to happen. Because what happens is we're not rigorous in really clarifying what we call the conditions of satisfaction. What is it going to take for me, if I'm a customer, to be satisfied? So half the time the customer doesn't really know. But your job as the guy that he's talking to get it done is to help him think it through.
Right.
So we've broken a conversation into 4 quadrants: formulation, negotiation, fulfillment, satisfaction. Seems simple. and good. And when you look at it on paper, it is.
Right. That's probably how it's designed to seem.
Yeah, it's designed to be simple. That's what I explained to people. I said, human beings are designed, we're hardwired for this stuff. We live for this stuff. Because when you get, and I also, back to my example with the group, how many of you felt this sense of satisfaction when you got this little simple thing done? Even, it's meaningless. And they're, yeah, yeah. Because, for once, for once, I could go from A to B and I got something done and I got to thank you. And yay, I got something done.
Right.
That we're hardwired for that. We like to produce satisfaction. We get in our own way though, all the time. So, the most common breakdown is if I'm the quote customer. The customer is simply the person who's making the request.
Right.
Doesn't have to be an external customer. Most of them are internal. So my customer make a request, and the person he's making a request to, we refer to as the holder. She is the person who holds the promise that the request will get fulfilled. That doesn't mean they're going to do all the work, but they're going to manage the process,
Responsibility
whatever,
falls.
to get it done. I'm the person, you're the person I'm going to go to if this thing is not getting done right.
Right.
And those two people are always individual human beings. They're never departments, divisions, etc. They're always specific human beings who may be acting on behalf of a department, but it's all that. Now, where almost everything breaks down is in the negotiation phase, because people in bureaucratic organizations are conditioned to say yes to everything. It doesn't occur to them that they should negotiate. So if I'm your quote boss and I make a request of you, you've just been conditioned for years to go yes, yes, or 3 bags full,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And what I encourage all of or teach all of our customers to do is never ever take a first yes. Never. And so if they won't negotiate, you do it for them. Do you have the resources you need to do this? I know your plate's already pretty full, and having your people work overtime, on weekends is not acceptable.
Right.
So if you don't have the resources, what do you need? Because my job is, as the customer, is not to make a request and walk away. My job is to make sure that you've got, because at the end of the negotiation, you're going to make me a promise. The promise is around what we've agreed on as the conditions of satisfaction. You need to have a voice because you're the one who's got to do the work. This
Yeah.
isn't just a, smile and salute. And that doesn't work anymore. So anyway, I'm going kind of a little bit into the weeds on, it's a simple process on the face of it, but as you start digging into it and understanding what it really takes to be a rigorous customer, how do you really effectively negotiate? And we've all been, the fulfillment part is pretty straightforward. Do what you said you were going to do, and then the satisfaction part is where another big breakdown. Had this before. Somebody work asks you to do something. You work hard, you bust your butt, you give them the finished product, and you never hear a word. There's no thank you, no nice job. Here's what we did with it. Nothing. Yeah.
Right.
So you've been there before. How
Yeah.
inspired are you to work for that person again?
You don't really feel as inspired because it
Yeah,
doesn't.
not
You
so
don't
much.
feel
Yeah. It's
grateful.
like,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, hey,
Oh, you
okay,
got
cool.
another request here. I got one too. Kiss my, I mean, yeah.
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 Yeah. Because it's like,
That
people
was
want to
just
feel
my
good.
inside. That was my inside conversation.
I know what you mean. But yeah, we
Yeah.
want to feel good. We want to feel appreciated. Even if,
Yeah,
a request is
exactly.
made, we want at least to thank you. Doesn't mean that we need to have a parade thrown, but some
No, I
acknowledgement.
don't need a parade, but I need some kind of acknowledgement,
Yeah.
that you got it, that it fulfilled the conditions of satisfaction. It'd be nice if you were a little bit grateful, but, at least I got something from you.
Right. Right. So what is normally happening that becomes so pressing that people end up reaching out to you? Are they coming to you before the problem builds up too much? Or are you usually jumping in there when the chaos has started to ensue already?
Well, we get both, actually. So there's some smart people who are in organizations that are growing, but they're having growing pains and they don't understand why. And this happens a lot in young companies that scale up. You know, Jesus, we used to just be 10 guys sitting in a room. We could get all this kind of stuff. That's right. You could. Now you're 100 guys. You're not all in the same room. You're spread out. You don't have any effective standardized processes for coordination. And that's the problem. And no
Mm.
amount of Slack or,
Google
Microsoft
Docs.
project or any of that kind of stuff is going to make any difference until you get the underlying stuff right. Right. So
Right.
as we say, what we're up against, according to Gartner and McKinsey, the American workforce today gets done what they say they're going to get done anywhere from 30 to 60% of the time. 60% being the high mark. Okay. Now, what's between that 60 and 100 is what we call coordination waste. Right? Now, in the industrial era, waste was pretty simple to understand because you could see it. Right? There's all this scrap. Here's all this inventory in a warehouse.
Yeah.
Here's all these people standing around doing nothing. Right? You could see it. Industrial era waste was simple, and for the most part, it's been eliminated with the Toyota production system and all the stuff that's been developed. You don't have a big problem with industrial waste anymore. We have a huge problem with coordination waste. It's insidious because it's invisible.
Right.
You can't see the bad conversation that happened 3 weeks ago that produced the report being off the mark today and a dissatisfied customer. That conversation has now vanished into history. What we've got over here is a dissatisfied customer. So we'll try and we'll go back and we'll look at the project plan and all that kind of stuff. And there's no cheese down that tunnel.
Well, what are
The break
those kind of like telltale signs or things that they're doing that could let
telltale signs are real simple. Everything seems to take longer than it should. There's a mood of frustration amongst people because everybody knows, hey, I'm working hard. What seems to be the problem here? People are frustrated. Work takes longer. We have to have meetings about the meeting that was talking about the meeting. And it's like, what the hell? There's that kind of
yeah,
general, what the hell? And the problem, bigger problem is if that is allowed to continue, your A-level players, who are the ones that drive the organization, will start to leave. They're like, I got no time for this. And they know they're A-level players. They can go any place they want. And you don't want to have an organization that's just B and C-level players.
right. So I guess when it is like 5 people who are overseeing 5 people and they're trying to coordinate and there is that dysfunction, is a part of that process everyone coming together, or is it how each individual connects with their team? Does that make sense?
It makes
Because we
sense,
do
but
see a lot in this industry.
yeah, so one of the things that we learned, it's like sports provide us some good analogies. They're not always useful, but in this case, it's like if we got a football team, right, and we've got a cool new play that the coaches got. He doesn't just teach that play to the quarterback. Who's he teach it to?
Everybody that's involved.
Everybody, right? So we got to have a common language. We got to understand that. That's why
Right.
when we did our big programs, we did groups of 100, 200 at a time.
Right.
It doesn't do any good if you got a big organization to just teach, 5 or 10 people this stuff. You got to get it to everybody. And it's not complex. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. But if you don't have a common language and common practices, coordination is impossible. It happens, but it happens by accident, not by design. And the way the world's moving in these cases, you can't afford to have your strategy be driven by accident. It's like we're gonna have barbecued pig. How are you gonna do that? We're gonna wait for lightning to strike and set the pig pen on fire. Right. Well, okay. Every once in a while you'll get barbecued pork, but for the most part you're going to be hungry.
Yeah. And it kind of sets you up for saying that you tried, but like,
Yeah.
did you really do what needed to be done?
Yeah. Well, this is where we fall back to the wisdom of Yoda: do or do not. There is no try.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some results or some things that have happened where people may have came to you and maybe felt like maybe they didn't need you, or maybe they didn't know, and then they had those what kind of results ended up on the other end? I want to see like where people come to you
Yeah.
they can
So
kind of say no.
every time we we use back before COVID, we would do these big group programs, right? And it was some weird alchemy that happened because I get a group of, it didn't matter how big the group was,
Right.
50, 100, every single time they would show up and they would self-select themselves into 3 almost identically sized subsets. There was the first group who were like, wow, this is cool. This is so great. I'm so excited. I don't even know what we're doing, but that we're doing something. Yay. And then there was the middle group who were like, well, this could be cool or it could suck. I'm open either way. Well, let's see what you got. Then there's the third group. They always sit in the back with their arms crossed. Okay, you suck. This sucks. That I have to be here sucks. Go ahead, teach me something. I dare you. Yeah. Now, from our point of view, we're kind of stuck there because we can't just ditch the last group, much as it's tempting. So we got to bring them along, so everything has to move at their pace for a while. But out of that last group, we'll get 90% of it. You're never going to get everybody. That's not our goal.
Right.
And in fact, when we do these big engagements, I used to tell the CEO, who's always our client, by the way, said, look, if we do our work well, 2 to 3% of your people are going to quit. And I don't charge you any extra for that.
That's trimming off the fat anyway.
We're gonna cull the herd for you, right?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna teach them things about accountability and commitment and trust and integrity. And there's just a little subset of people who are more happy trying to stay under their rock and collect their paycheck, and that's not the team you want going forward.
Right.
So yeah, we install a common language, but not just words. You got to live this stuff. So we have practices for all that. So, but those are days gone by. What we're doing now is we've taken all this methodology and turned it into a couple of video programs. We still teach it live, as people are finally now starting to go, oh, I guess we could get back together and we're not all going to die. But part of the problem we're finding is that as a result of the hangover from COVID, people don't want to spend any money on developing, well, we'll have a brown bag lunch thing, please.
It's almost as bad as the pizza party.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't work that way. So, but we're getting groups back together. I'm working on, as we speak, I'm taking a break from developing the materials for a group that we're working with. And as I said, we put just literally in the last week or two, launched these new video programs so people can get what we've been doing. They don't have to wait till their company decides. They can go find it and do it on their own. And then eventually, as I tell people, I go, look, everybody works somewhere. So if you do this and you find, wow, I got a lot of value out of it, and then what you're going to have, I said, now the downside is if you just do this on your own, you're going to go back to work and it's going to look very different to you. You're going to get annoyed with everybody who doesn't understand what you do. So don't do that, but get somebody who can make a decision. And now let's get 50 people doing the video program, or 100, or whatever. And if you got a whole gaggle of people, it's cheaper to have us come in and do it live. But
Right.
so there's options.
What is your favorite part about what you do on a day-to-day basis?
On a daily basis?
Yeah, just like it. Well, what you're doing.
I suppose
what's
the
part
answer
that
is
lights you up?
the answer you're looking for is probably not in the after-work scotch. So let's.
That's a good answer.
No, that's not it. That's not it. Yeah, it's a good answer, but on a daily basis, well, what I'm enjoying is cooking up new stuff. I'm always, on the hunt for something new. And, the real joy in this work is watching people take it and do something with it.
Right.
As I say to everybody, look, I teach a series of what we call generative practices. A generative practice is one where once you learn it, you'll generate something totally unexpected to me because you're using it in your world. So it's like if I teach you how to play music, it'll take a while. Nothing about you, just the reality. Okay. And eventually though, you'll get to the point where you don't need me to tell you what you want to play. You'll be able to go play whatever you like. And if you really, really get going at it, you'll start creating your own music. That's what we're after. Because you live in your world, you'll know more about your world. You'll know more about your business than I ever will.
Right.
So I'll teach you some basic stuff, and then you're going to go find ways to utilize it that I would never have thought of, which is the whole point. That's the whole point. Yeah.
Right. To build yourself and understand the concepts. And as you build up, you take what you already know, merged with what you're teaching them, and create something that's even better for your business in totality as you're scaling forward. That's
bingo.
Awesome.
Now, let's tune up something you just said, because you just tripped another big tripwire for me. So understanding concepts, that's good, but we learned, everybody knows this at some level, but for some reason we seem to forget it when it comes to business. So we've been sold a bill of goods about learning, all of us, because we've been conditioned to think that learning is about gaining insight, information, understanding theories, models, beliefs, all for the sake of the holy grail, which is to understand it. Because, bingo, that's it. So what we learned a long time ago with athletes is they're not dumb. They can understand a lot, but in that world, it doesn't matter what you understand. What matters is what can you do? Yep.
Yep.
Now, here's where I scramble everybody's eggs. So while your mind understands, and understanding can in fact occur in an instant, in the end, it's your body that learns. And your body only learns one way, and that's through practice, period. No amount of understanding ever produced competence in anything. Only practice does. And practice takes time. And in today's world where we have, the short attention span plague, people are like, well, give me the cliff notes. No. What do you mean, no? Was it the N or the O that you didn't understand?
Right.
Yeah,
No is a sentence.
yeah, it's a 9-month program. Yeah, but I only have 3 months. Oh, that's fine. Then don't bother. What? I said, I'm not going to just sit and take your money. If you want the result that we negotiated, this is how
Right.
you do it. Well, yeah, but why can't we? Look, if you go to the doctor because you're sick and the doctor diagnoses and tells you, here's how we're going to make you better, are you going to argue with him about, it's like, no, don't be an idiot. That's what you went to the doctor for.
Right.
Don't tell him how to do his job.
Yeah,
I
like,
read
Doc, I
about it
broke
on
my
the,
arm.
yeah, I
You
read
said it was
about
going
it
to
on
take
the internet.
10
It says
weeks.
on
Can
the
you make it done
internet
in
that,
two?
yeah, I read about it on the internet. So now I know everything. Yeah, that guy went to school for 10 years, moron. And you read for 10 minutes and now you know as much as he does. I don't think so.
Claude said it says 2 weeks to heal. So
Yeah, what's a big idea? Good. Then get Claude to fix it for you. Yeah.
I definitely understand that it does become,
Yeah.
it becomes a growing momentum type of thing. So it can't really be 2 months, 3 months and fix what you've been doing wrong for
No,
3, 5, 10
no,
years inside of your
you,
business. So,
you've got to be, there's a phrase that we used to use, which like any of these things doesn't mean anything anymore, but you've got to try and build a learning organization. Now, having worked with hundreds of companies, and I'd say a small percentage of them I would classify as high performing. One thing about all the high performers, they insisted on dedicating time and money to constant development. So in a high performing organization, they're taking anywhere from 2 to 4% of gross revenue annually, right, and spending it on learning and development, and 3 to 5, sometimes as much as 10% of their time. And everybody's like, oh my God, they must be rich. I said, no, they're smart. They get rich out of the payback
right.
on that investment. You go now, we got, this is my rant. We've got not a real cadre of strong leaders in corporate America today. You've got a whole cadre of caretakers and way too many companies that promoted people from finance into executive roles. Almost never a good idea.
Yeah.
The last people you want are the accountants and lawyers running your company.
Yep. Yep. Too many.
And that's a slight percentage. They're both trained to be risk adverse. And
Right.
you can't live in this world that way and expect, anything to survive. You might be a good caretaker, but you're not going to grow anything. The guys who founded the company would be rolling in their graves, or maybe are, if they saw how a lot of these companies are being run today.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely understand that. It becomes sort of like, it's not really a rebranding. It's more of a reigniting of your vision and journey to make sure everyone is collectively collaborated and moving in the right direction so that you can build it to where you want to go. Because I do believe that
Yeah.
a lot of people always looking for the outside thing in, the next marketing trend, the next outside thing in. And it's like, where can I dump money outside that they never really foster it? And then when people don't come along with the journey because they're not really understanding what's happening, they just
Yeah.
roll it out and bring some out. You know what? Just get rid of it. It's like, well, that person's going to come in and not know either. So we're not really changing those things. So it's cool that you're taking time and not just like, I have this 1 week program that's going to transform you. And like, no,
Mm-hmm.
this is time. This will take time. We have to reanalyze. We have to read it. So I think that's really, really cool. But I know we did talk about, you mentioned the scotch, but what are you like outside the business? What are the things you like to do when you're not transforming teams?
Well, I spent a lot of time kind of doing adventure stuff. I've hiked the Inca Trail, been to the jungles in the Amazon, up in Alaska, trekked across to Africa for 6 weeks. I tend to be a little bit of that, although I'm getting to the point in life now where my body's not so sure that's a good idea anymore. So, I've always been kind of well, here's something new. I mean, I've done all the crazy things you can think of: bungee jumping, fire walking, all that kind of stuff. Just like,
Right.
my basic philosophy is if some human being can do it, that means any of us can do it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm necessarily competent. I'm not talking about skilled stuff in the moment, but I have the capability. So I orient myself that way. So right this moment, to be blunt about it, I'm working on, speaking of shoulders, rehabbing this shoulder from a replacement surgery that I had, 6 months ago. That's consuming a lot of time and attention. And I'm getting ready to take a little vacation. I'm in Seattle and go over. My sister lives in North Idaho, so we're going over there, get out in the woods, have some time. I like being out in nature.
Does it rain in Seattle as much as they say, or is that like a myth so y'all can keep all the greatness to yourselves? See, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it.
So go get on YouTube or TikTok and look at some of the footage from the USA Australia World Cup.
Okay.
That's Seattle at its best in the summer. Now the truth is, it rains here frequently, but not a lot.
I know what you
Right. Well,
mean.
by that, what I mean is, it rains, but most people in Seattle don't bother with umbrellas, because when it rains here, it just tends to kind of mist, which is what keeps everything lush and green. The joke around here is, what's the big idea? It only rained 3 times last winter, once for 6 weeks, then again for 4 weeks, and then a little 2.5 week span right there at the end. Your first winter here can be a little off-putting. It can be very depressing because it'll just be gray. It may not even be raining, but it'll be overcast and gray for weeks on end. And then
Yeah, see, I don't
summer
mind,
arrives.
but snow.
Summer arrives, and it's up in the 80s. One of the joys about living here, even though we're right on the ocean, the water, is we don't have humidity. So people are amazed by that. But go check out some of the footage from the World Cup here. It's been a perfect example of Seattle at its finest.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely look at that. I'll definitely look at that. Well, Chris, I appreciate you coming on this podcast with me, dropping some knowledge. And there's a lot of people on there who do have teams that are ranging from 10 to, hundreds of people on there. And if they wanted to know if they should or reach out to you to see if maybe they need to, start to make some changes in theirs, how can they reach out to you or get in touch with you?
Well, it's real simple. Just go to our website, humanpotentialproject.com.
Humanpotentialproject.com.
Yeah. These 2 new programs that I told you about are there. They're easy to find. And you can get on Amazon and get my book, it's not about the stuff we've been talking about, but it's more about how do I kind of transform my own life. It's called The Power to Transform. We used to sell them for off of our website, but the truth is Amazon gets them way faster and cheaper than we can.
I
Let's
understand.
let them do what they do.
Cool. Yeah, I want to definitely get that name of the name in the book again. So I'm gonna make sure I put that in the bio. I'll find like the Amazon link to it too, so people can go straight to it, and I'll put it in the bio. That way they can go to your website.
Yeah, perfect.
And do that. But then if they also want to go to your book, they'll have a quick link to it.
Yep. Good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you again for jumping on here with me, Chris. This has been so much fun, and I appreciate you dropping the knowledge to the people that are viewing.
My pleasure. Hope it was useful.
And thank you guys for watching. I would say take your time. If you have a team, building a team, looking about scaling your team up, reach out to Chris. Ask him some questions. As you see, he's very knowledgeable, but it's going to be way better when he can understand your specific situation and what you're trying to do. So even if you just don't know, I'd say, what's the harm? Reach out. Say, see what happens when you knock down that tree. And if you have your own business and you have an interesting thing of what you're doing, like Chris, reach out to me too. Jump on my podcast at Tavius at FixMyFeesTeam.com. So thank you again, everybody, for watching another episode of the Fix My Fees podcast, and good night.